I know like what I want to work on, and you've made it so easy for me to be able to like voice that to you, and like you get on board with what I'm trying to do, and then you add your stuff in, which
Yeah.
obviously at the end of the day helps a ton. So
Welcome back to another episode of Zeal Talk.
It's barely about baseball.
About scoring runs. Like an offensive guy, it's like I'd rather have 2 hits and 12 runs than 12 hits and 2 runs.
I might have two guys that move similar that have to think completely different.
You try to match the movements up with Barry Bonds, it's like cool, but like what actually matters is what's underneath the swing.
Who has what different opinions and how people approach bringing their ideas to the table.
We would rather have guys in our program that you have to rein in than that you have to light a fire on. You were definitely one that we kind of had to rein in.
No way. All right, so for this episode, I want to talk a little bit. Let's just talk about like the off-season process for you and kind of what it looks like as a pro player. Today, as we're recording this, we just hit for the first time. No real instruction or anything, just kind of just swinging away and seeing where we're at. So I kind of wanted to just hit on both our different perspectives. Obviously, you had ideas coming into the off-season, what you want to work on. I kind of, obviously we have this collaboration we've had for over a year now. So kind of just, I have different checkpoints I want you to hit and kind of see where we're at wise. But kind of, obviously we reflect on your season, but from strictly like a movement perspective, swing perspective approach, like are there big things that, like are there low hanging fruit that you're like, okay, I know early on we want to hit this. And then we can kind of just bounce back and forth perspective wise from pro athlete to hitting coach and kind of even what just today looked like, and then kind of as we've been mapping out kind of what the offseason is going to look like. So what are like the big things you've been kind of, you want to focus on, want to work on, and then obviously we messed around a little bit with today, so we can kind of just talk about it, have a conversation.
I think for my right side, I don't really worry too much about, this. I fall into a lot better patterns righty than I do lefty. There's a lot more focus when it comes to the left side for me.
Yeah.
So my left side, I've had this ongoing battle with myself with my hands and where like a good starting point and things of that nature. And I was doing this thing righty where like I was kind of like pre-setting like a scap load.
Yeah.
And during the season, and my right side was really locked in basically the whole year.
Yeah.
And lefty, I couldn't find that spot on my left side. So coming into this off season, my thoughts on my left side were to try to find try to get that preset with my scap loaded and trying to make my move with my upper body a little bit smaller so I can be a little bit more consistent, so I can fire from the same spot more often.
Yeah.
I think that's what I do righty. I don't have a bunch of movement righty. And lefty, I was like I always mess with my upper body lefty when I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into next season with that like question mark of where do my hands start? So like I'm trying my first time back swinging today, and it was really light, and I wasn't thinking entirely too much about anything else besides like kind of getting that preset with my hands and getting to a spot where I can launch from more consistently. And I figured what better way to do it than like take some time off and then come back and like let that be where my starting point.
Yeah.
So that I don't feel like it's foreign to me and I can build good muscle memory from there.
Yeah. I know like from my perspective too, like anytime I have a new athlete, but specifically like anytime I'm working with a pro guy, whether it's even remote, but in-house more so like obviously I want to know like what guys' misses are like in game, like when they feel good, what do they feel like they're good at? When they're off, what do they feel like their results are? Like what's the ball telling you? But I feel like we talk a lot about timing and loading early, and sometimes that can clean up a lot of stuff. But from strictly like a movement perspective for me, I like to see kind of setup, like where are we at? Do we have a huge move to get to our spot? How consistently do we get to a good spot to fire from? And that was like day one last year when we started hitting. We kind of talked about that. I noticed that like lefty, you like to like open up sometimes, have your hands kind of like forward like this, almost like the knobs like at the pitcher.
Yeah.
And we talked about how that sometimes causes you to like pin your elbows to your rib cage, just loses space, and then that can
Get
lose
scoopy.
posture. You
Yeah.
can get scoopy. And early on we talked about like spacing, like can we have your hands and your load of your upper body in particular, like maintain space and create space so that it's easy for your barrel to get through or your hands to stay high, however you want to put it.
And just with my knob being like almost like pointed towards like the shortstop to start, like there's just so much space and like that I can get like messed up and not get to where I want to get to. Like I'd have to be super early all the time, and it's just hard to be consistent when you have a long way to go.
Yeah, I always say, like we were saying, and you know me, like it's your swing, we collaborate, but there's always things that like I like to look a certain way or whatever. And a big thing for us last year was just like, I obviously hated when your hands would be like that. I always just say like, you have such a long way to travel.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a good flow and rhythm to get back. And then we talked about how like, you talk about this a lot, like as the season gets on, you're playing over 100 games, like your body's going to get tired. And then my thought is, how can we get back to it when we're feeling off? That's always a big thing. And I'm just like, if you're starting there and when you're feeling good and have energy and not as tired and fatigued, like, yeah, you can get back there all day. But like, if you're tired, are you going to are you not fully going to get back to that loaded spot? Are you going to be like halfway there and then that's going to cause a push or a scoop? Or you having to rip with your body? So those are conversations obviously we're having year round. Is just for a lot of guys, obviously people are different, but it's hard to be consistent or like get to a consistent spot in the load if you have a long way to travel. That's why I think you see a lot of, and I think sometimes maybe it hurts the hitter, like in terms of like they making them too cookie cuttery, making every guy start in the same spot. But it comes down to consistency. And if it takes less time and less of a move to get to that spot, usually we're going to get to that spot, a good spot to fire from more consistently. And we always talk about like, that's like usually half the battle with you. It's just like, can we get you to a consistent spot early?
While maintaining rhythm, right? Like that was the big thing for me on why I would have like my knob pointed towards the shortstop, was because in my head, like having rhythm was super important to me, because in the past I felt like I didn't have any, and it was hard to be consistent in that way too. So like it was giving me space for rhythm.
Yeah.
But I think that the more and more I work on my swing, the less and less space I need to feel like rhythm.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know like when you came in the first time, obviously you've been lifting the last couple of weeks and trying to get your body prepped before we start swinging. But the conversation we had was just like trying to preset, maybe start a little bit more preset, kind of like you do righty. I know a lot of times finding feels lefty kind of goes off of what you feel like you do well or do well naturally righty as a switch hitter. But
I know they're not going to be the same.
Yeah, but sometimes thinking similar thought patterns will get them close, or at least more natural athletic move for you. But when you first mentioned kind of like being preset, I like the idea, but immediately, because that's how my brain goes too, I kind of go right away to like what could go wrong. Is I thought about like if it gets too robotic and preset and like almost too tight, are you going to lose that rhythm and flow?
Yeah,
and that's kind of the flip side of it, where it's like, yeah, you know, logically, common sense speaking wise, like, yeah, just start here because then that's all you have to fire from. But then you come into fact like rhythm and timing and how you're going to flow and stay athletic and not be too tight or
stagnant.
Yeah, stagnant.
And then like not have any like behind it.
Yeah.
When you don't have like, when I just feel like a lot of people like that they correlate like rhythm and movement to like power and stuff, right? Or like that's how I was for a long time. Like I had big moves because I wanted to hit the ball hard. And I figured like if I have these big gigantic moves, like I'm going to impact the ball better.
Yeah.
And then now I realize like I want clean moves.
Yeah.
And the pitcher supplies, and if I have a good swing and my moves are clean, like the ball's going to do what it's supposed to do off my bat.
Yeah. And real quick, we could tell a story about with Cano, because I remember when Cano signed to the team in Mexico before you got released there and came back, you were like, dude, you got to see Cano swing. Like it's way different. And I was like, you can literally close your eyes and think of Robinson Cano, right? He's got that flow. He's got the little barrel tip. His hands flow back. Everything's smooth.
Big moves with his barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were telling me like, yo, he like condensed everything, way less hand movement, just kind of like a little wiggle. And I was trying to like picture in my head because I was like, Cano's Cano. He's always done that since he came up. And then like you guys were like, I think it was like preseason games or spring training, however you call it there. But and he hit a bomb, and I literally saw the swing immediately. Just sent it to you on Instagram. I was like, bro, he got rid of like all movement.
Of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any conversation with him about like?
I did.
Trying to, yeah.
I did because obviously I've been a huge Cano fan.
Yeah.
And I've had like cage time with him.
Yeah.
Like previous to Mexico, like
yeah.
with the Yankees, I was in the cage with him, and I've seen his work, and I noticed how much. So like he used to have the big wiggle where like he would almost do like an infinity sign with his barrel to get to his spot, and it was so much like tighter and smaller of a move, and it was like, and then he was like almost like everything on his backside, like barely any weight on his front foot.
Yeah,
and I realized that, and I asked him, I was like, what made you change from your move that you made your whole career?
Yeah.
Now you're 40 years old and you completely change, not completely change because there's still rhythm and there's still flow.
Just less
movement. And he told me, he was like, I think that I was getting like caught in between, basically, with the moves. Like he wasn't able to finish his moves, and it made his swing decisions harder.
Yeah.
Right. So like I think he thought like if I get to that spot and hold it, I can be more consistent with impacting the ball on my barrel and things of that nature. And obviously he did. He hit like 500.
I was gonna say he won the batting title, hit like 440. Yeah, but no, it's a cool story because
and he didn't lose power.
No, obviously no.
He still drove the ball. He still was hitting balls out to center. The regular Robinson Cano that everybody's come to love. But
no, I just think that's a good story because obviously people know Robinson Cano, and you know his swing. Like I said,
and maybe subconsciously, like seeing him do that has made me think of that.
Maybe
you know what I mean. That type of stuff happens when you're around.
Yeah, I mean when you're around a Hall of Fame caliber talent.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So it's cool too because, like I said, your last round or two, when we were talking after, I just said like, you hit checkpoints for me because I had a couple things where I was just like, what's he look like in terms of creating stretch? Is he stuck? Is he crashing forward? Is he shifting and getting scoopy? Like I have kind of as a hitting coach from the hitting coach perspective, like I have checkpoints because obviously like I know you, we've worked together for like a year now. So I know usually like the 2, 3, 4 things that lock you in, but they're also the same things that I know if you're off, you'll fall back into those bad habits in that area. Controlling your back leg, for example, or back hip, whatever you want to call it. But, and I told you, I'm like, okay, you just hit one checkpoint for me, at least for now, which was preset looks good, feels good, but you still have rhythm. Where I said like, basically you weren't just like pinned with your scat back super tight and then like, crashing forward. Sometimes guys are tight and they're pushy, or their body takes over and they get really rippy with their shoulders or something. But you kind of had a flow where you were starting in a spot you could fire from, and then your flow was kind of like a natural smaller little gather, which got you to like probably a little bit better of a position to fire from, which was kind of a big checkpoint for me.
Which was like my goal coming into this, because this is my first time hitting this off season, and I don't when I first pick up a bat again, like I don't want to be this like strict like mechanical everything. Like I want to feel athletic, loose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I wanted to like, that was the only thing I focused on, was just like trying to get to this spot and fire from as similar of a spot as I could. Every swing, which I felt went better than I thought it was going to go, truthfully.
Yeah, because like I said, if you go back to kind of the perspective of whether it's a new athlete or athlete like you, we've worked together for a while, like beginning of the off season, like we obviously talk. We don't just talk right when you get back, but we have these conversations. But when we get back and we have those conversations, like, okay, what do we want to do? For me, I'm like, it always goes back to like what we look like in terms of like, how are we loading? Can we get to that spot consistently, and can we control it? Like those are the biggest 3 things. Like what position are we loading to? Can we get there consistently? And then can we control it? Are we able to maintain stretch back in that position on different pitches, different speeds, different spins, different shapes, whatever you want to call it? Because if we can do that first, I feel like that kind of like eliminates half the problem, because it's different for guys. Some guys need to like completely change their setup. Maybe it's just like being in a better, like creating better angles from their setup, because that helps them flow to a spot consistently. Some guys, it has to do with like lower body, back hip, back leg, understanding the feel for that so that we can control it. Some guys get to a good spot and they either get there and crash forward, or they just kind of have a 2D shift back, shift forward. And it's different, but like that's huge for me, is just, are we loading to a good spot? Can we get there consistently? Can we control it? And like I said, it helps when you've worked with people like the athletes I've worked with the longest. It's quicker to get there because I know our checkpoints. And even today, it was easier because once I saw after a round or two, like, okay, he's starting in a preset position and he has flow and rhythm. Okay, that's good. And then I started kind of like giving a couple cues as you hit, like, hey, for you today, we were like, hey, don't get stuck on that back leg. Like, make sure you can create stretch with the front foot, for example. And that's how you build it out. That's kind of how I see it, is like, get to know the athlete, understand like what he wants to do, because it's your swing, it's your career. I can say like, hey, I want your hands here and whatever, but it's your swing. So is it comfortable? And then once we kind of have that consistent 3 checkpoints, like
that's
I can add on to it with cues.
That's another thing that like us collabing. That's what I feel like we collab on my swing. It's not just hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to get to this spot. Hey, you need to do this. Like it's always like a conversation, and I think that goes a long way, because in my opinion, like when someone is telling me like you got to do this, like I'm almost like I'm not as receptive to that, because it's just like, well, you're telling me to do something, and it's like you're telling me so matter of fact, but like you don't have to go hit. I do.
Yeah.
So it has to feel good to me in order for me to believe in it.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'd rather, like, again, from the hitting coach perspective, like if you have an idea that you think, hey, this could work because either you felt it or looking at swings, whatever.
And you give me the room to explore those feels.
Yeah.
Which
like,
is nice.
Who am I if you're like, hey, this is what I felt righty in game and I raked righty this year, which the numbers back up.
Mm-hmm.
If you were just like, hey, like I want to try this out, like who am I to be like, no, I don't think you should do that.
Right.
I want to at least be like, let's try it. And either we're going to know right away, no, and it's not me to be like, see, I told you.
And
at least
I ran into those situations in pro ball where guys are just like, that's not going to work in the game. And I'm just like, well, you just saying that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like that's something that bothered me in it. And I wasn't mature enough to understand that, like, they're not always right.
No.
You know what I mean?
I always like, everyone's right, everyone's wrong. Everything is good, everything sucks. Like there's always like, and I don't think it should matter. Like if you were like, hey, I want to think about doing a backflip when I release my barrel, and I were to be like, and you do it and you rake and you hit the ball and you hit different, cool.
Yeah.
Think backflip.
Yeah.
Like, no one has to know or care.
It's the thing where it's like some guys think about like chopping down and they don't chop down. Yeah. Some guys think about hitting the ball straight up in the air and they don't do that.
Yeah.
But that's the feels that they need. And just goes back to like hitting's not a cookie cutter thing.
No, it's not. And it could change. Like during the season, I know she were getting, like, we both know she were getting a little scoopy, and you literally like were like, I'm trying to get on top of it and hit ground balls today.
Yeah.
Did you hit ground balls?
No.
No.
But that's
evens you out.
That's another thing where like that's a reason why I want to have this like preset scap load thing, was because like I think that is going to eliminate a lot of the scoopiness in my swing.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that in my swing righty. Like I wasn't flaring balls down the right field line righty. Like I was locked in, and like I want to get that same feel on my left side, because my problem lefty is like I don't get to that spot, and my hands like I'm unaware of where my hands are in space sometimes during the season.
Yeah.
But if I feel that scap load and I feel like I'm holding it, then I can just fire from a stronger spot, so that now like this scoop stuff that I do kind of gets eliminated. And of course during the season, like there'll be a point in time where I am scoopy. That's just part of who I am. But I just need to be able to realize it and understand, okay, I'm not getting that to that spot.
Yep. And that's my job. I believe in the offseason, like any athlete I work with, but especially pro guys or guys that are playing 100+ games, I hopefully have helped create the awareness and the understanding so I'm scoopy, okay, I need to get loaded back more. I'm scoopy, I need to think more about the hands in the barrel. Or I'm crashing forward, I need to think more about staying back and stretching back.
And that's the goal this year because, like I told you in the previous episode we did about not having the machine.
Yeah.
And I think when I have the machine, it gets rid of my scoopiness for me.
Yeah.
Because if you do that on the machine, you can't hit the ball,
especially with marbles.
100%. So like if you're on the machine and you're hitting on velo, the machine kind of cleans it up for me.
Yeah.
But I need to be able to recognize it and not have to rely on a machine to clean me up.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's like one of my goals this off season is like, I don't want to find myself in a situation where like I'm relying on something that might not be there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, it's strictly like you have your key checkpoints, like what probably are the 3 biggest things that will go wrong during the season, how to correct those or feel or even what they look like on video.
Mm-hmm.
And then that just keeps you locked in. So it makes a 2-week slump turn into a 2 to 3 game slump. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Not that long stretch where
that's
searching.
Right. That's the difference, right? Like that's the difference between like great hitters and good hitters.
Yeah.
Right. Is the awareness and being able to be like, there's a problem, and then try to fix it as fast as possible and let the number of at bats be smaller in between those not feeling good.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, I'm excited for the offseason just because, like I said, it's always more fun for me, and I feel like the job gets easier when the relationship is better. Like the more I know the athlete, the more I know kind of how your brain works, how your body works, and then what you want to be able to do with your swing. Now it's like, okay, for me, I almost like, all right, this is the end goal of what you want your move to be. Now let's kind of backtrack it, and then we kind of create a plan from there versus just like tweaking every day. Like, oh, let's try this. Oh, let's try this. Again, there's that in between. Like we want to plan and we know where it needs to be. And there's times where I'm like more demanding versus others. If you want to try something out, yeah, let's try it. But then if you keep falling into a bad habit, I'll be like, bro,
that's not it.
Get your hands back. Stay. And there's that fine line. It's not me telling you. But if I was just like,
it's in the
do whatever
results
you
too.
want, I'll flip. Like that's not what I do either. You know so there's always that balance. Figure out what the athlete wants, and then let's figure out where you want to be, and then we'll kind of backtrack from there, create the plan, and then like what do we need to do each training session, each week, to build you out. Build you out from there.
And it's always felt like I'm trying to get my lefty swing as close as I can to my right-handed swing. Yeah. Like it's always felt like the goal.
Yeah,
we went about it I've went about it in a roundabout way where it's like kind of pushing back because for some reason lefty like open feels good to me and to see and all the things that we've talked about in the past. But like that's why I think it's such a huge thing to like take that break and then like come in and start making it muscle memory from the start.
Yeah.
So that it's not like, oh well, I can't see. Well, no, I can see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just trusting it and work. And I think it'll open up different parts of the field for me, power wise, because righty, I went from line to line righty this year.
Yeah.
Homers like oppo, center,
left,
pull side. You know, like I went everywhere, and I want that ability lefty, and I know I can do it.
Yeah. And we've seen the good days when stuff's locked in, it feels good. Now it's how consistent. And again, I look at the swing as a movement. So I feel like righty, you do a lot less work, a lot less thinking. To me, that's your natural athletic movement. You have that flow, you have that control, everything's tight. Now let's figure out how we can get the lefty swing to be athletic and have that flow and be tight.
Just as long as I just feel like, and I've said it 1,000 times, I feel like just like that controlled move forward.
Yeah.
Like that to me is the biggest thing because I feel like I have so much control on the righty.
Yep.
And then today, just picking up the bat for the first time, I felt like I had some of that control on the lefty. So like I'm really excited to continue to like improve on that side and work on this stuff that we're working on.
It's going to continue to evolve. We're going to continue to get better. And again, that's kind of how it is. Like it's, everyone knows like hitting's never finished. It's never like, I found my swing. That's great. And there's going to be things righty we'll tweak too.
Of course.
But, that's part of the process. But we'll wrap it up there a little bit. Just a cool episode, just to kind of, we're getting into swing stuff now. Watch out. This season's going to be crazy. We'll keep documenting kind of things you feel and different things along the way process wise. But I think it's always cool too, because I get people will DM me and just be like, if a kid comes in for the first time, or when you have a pro hitter, what do you do right away? And I'm just like, it depends on the individual. Like kind of what you said, I see it more of a collaboration. What do they want to do? Like, what do they think they need? How can my knowledge and insight help them get there? And then like, let's figure this out together and build a plan based on where we want you to go.
For sure.
So,
and I feel like pro guys too, like they know what they want to do.
Yeah.
They have an idea of where they want to be, especially for like, I'm going into what, year 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
Something stupid like that. So like, I know like what I want to work on, and you've made it so easy for me to be able to like voice that to you, and like you get on board with what I'm trying to do, and then you add your stuff in, which obviously at the end of the day helps a ton. So
100%.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
this offseason.
It's gonna be fun. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, follow us on Apple Podcasts, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Zeal Talk, baby.